Om Namah Shivaya. So, after a few years of practice, and sometimes much earlier, most yoga practitioners try to understand the history and roots of their practice. However, for a subject that is so wide and monolithic, it is difficult to find one linear narrative that simplifies the lineage tree. So, here is my attempt to abridge a doctoral thesis worth subject into a concise talk of few minutes. The history of yoga starts with Lord Shiva, the original yogi or Adi yogi. Shiva transcends time, so the knowledge of yoga is also considered eternal. However, once you apply the dimensions of time to it, you can start to calibrate and calendarize the transmission of this knowledge. In ancient India, knowledge was passed down orally, so it's difficult to ascertain how old the philosophy and practice of yoga truly is. But we can make somewhat clunky attempts at stamping timelines on this journey. The earliest literature of India is broken into two distinct segments of Shruti texts and Smriti texts. Now, Shruti texts are where the authors are unknown, and these are considered heard texts. These are believed to be sublime works and attributed to divine beings. The Rig Veda is, for an example, an ancient Shruti text. It is believed Brahma, the lord of creation, used to recite the four Vedas, including the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda was then transcribed by sage Vyasa in around 1500 BC, but the Vedas are themselves considered timeless. And Rig Veda is the first document where yoga is mentioned, and here yoga is indicated to be union or yoking of the individual self with the higher self. The Vedas were followed by the Upanishads, which are considered the final chapters or adjuncts to the Vedas. There are supposedly 108 Upanishads, and 20 of them fall under the category of Yoga Upanishads. Now, here the focus is the concepts of consciousness, sound, breath, and meditation. After this come the Smriti texts, which are also called Itihasas, especially when referring to the two famous Smriti works, Ramayana and Mahabharata. The Mahabharata also contains the Bhagavad Gita, where yoga is described as a doctrine of life, a way to end suffering through detachment and equanimity. So yoga moves from a concept to a canon, right? The events in these texts are supposed to be between 10,000 to 5,000 years old, and sage Valmiki wrote the Ramayana, whereas sage Vyasa wrote the Mahabharata. So as we move through time, the next significant milestone for yoga came about 2000 years ago when sage Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras. Now these are 196 tenets on yoga, and this is the first text that creates a scaffolding for the knowledge of yoga. So we move from an effervescent idea to a concept to a canon to a structure. Patanjali is considered an avatar of Sheshnag, and he laid down the Ashtanga yoga method, which is not to be confused with the style of yoga, but what is meant as the 8 limbs of yoga, Ashtanga. This is the first time that asanas were mentioned as part of the yoga fabric, but there was still strong emphasis on personal conduct and the spiritual aspect of yoga. Now, if we fast forward to the 10th century or so, we have the legend of sage Matsyendranath, who was the first man to receive the teachings of yoga straight from Lord Shiva, who was actually passing on the information to his wife Parvati at a river bank, and Matsyendranath happened to listen while being a fish or inside a fish, depending on which myth you prefer to follow. Now, Matsyendranath was the founder of the Nath tradition and of Hatha Yoga, or what is known as the forceful approach to yoga. Hatha has two meanings, the sun and the moon, and also forceful. And his disciple, Gorakshanath, wrote what is considered by many the first book on Hatha Yoga, Goraksha Samhita. Now, this had 6 limbs, which are similar to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, but with far more emphasis on asana or the physical practice. In the following centuries, other yoga masters such as Swatmarama, Grihanda, and others wrote some of the most important texts on Hatha Yoga, such as Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Grihanda Samhita, and Shiva Samhita, which are considered the 3 most important books of that time. However, yoga practice remained confined to small circles of trust and knowledge. The British colonization of India and the suspicion of this native art made it an even more fringe activity. However, in the 19th century, there was a populist revival of sorts of the yoga tradition and practices through the efforts of some noteworthy spiritual and nationalist thought leaders. Prominent amongst these were figures like Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, Paramahansa Yogananda. Now, interestingly, all three of these hailed from Bengal, which had gained a reputation as the fountainhead of New Age thinking and national identity in those times. Their visits and stays in Europe and the US introduced and popularized yoga and Vedanta knowledge to the Western world. However, it was from another rival intelligentsia and cultural wellspring, the Madras Presidency, that two South Indian yoga masters, who ironically never stepped foot in the West, had the most profound impact on the development of yoga both in the East and in the West. Swami Shivananda and Sri Krishnamacharya were born 1 year apart and became the grandfathers of yoga, the leading lights in the renaissance of yoga. Krishnamacharya was a scholar, grammarian, Ayurveda healer, and also yoga teacher. He was an ocean of wisdom, and I don't think today we have even barely fathomed the range and depth of his abilities and skills. His key students were among the most important yoga luminaries of present times. B.K.S. Iyengar was the founder of Iyengar Yoga. His genius on alignment and props and his vast body of knowledge make him possibly the most well-known yoga teacher of all times. Pattabhi Jois, the founder of Ashtanga Yoga, which is almost as popular as Iyengar. Krishnamacharya's son was Desikchar, who founded Vinay Yoga. And Indra Devi, who was the first Western woman to be taught by Krishnamacharya and who became famous as the first lady of yoga in USA before moving on to Argentina and developing a devotional style of yoga. Lately, other students of Krishnamacharya have also become famous, such as A.G. Mohan and Srivatsa Ramaswamy, who is the founder of Vinyasa Krama style. Now, the only linkage between Shivananda and Krishnamacharya is that they learned their initial asanas in the same bath or temple. But apart from that, it seems the two gentlemen never ended up meeting either. So while Krishnamacharya was a householder, Shivananda was a monk who had renounced the world. And he also happened to be a medical doctor. Now, Swami Shivananda was a prolific author. So he wrote over 300 books on yoga, covering various common and arcane topics. His famous disciples include Swami Vishnudevananda, founder of Shivananda Yoga Vedanta Ashrams, which is the largest school body in the world. Then Swami Satyananda, who was the founder of Bihar School of Yoga, which is possibly the most comprehensive yoga institute. Swami Sachidananda, who's the founder of Integral Yoga. Swami Radha was again the first Western woman to learn from Swami Shivananda, who founded Yashodhara Ashram and also found the hidden language of yoga methodology. And not to forget Swami Chinmayananda, who is the founder of Chinmaya Mission. So these are some of the luminaries and some of the sort of history behind Hatha Yoga. Now, this is, of course, a bite-sized glimpse into well-being practiced, followed by millions across the globe now. So there's more that is left out than said. For example, I did not cover the various forms of yoga such as Bhakti, Jnana, Laya, Karma, or Tantra. Many non-Hatha and some Hatha Yoga luminaries were not mentioned at all. But then that's probably material for another webcast. So I hope you found this useful. Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much.